Hi there, this is Martin Popoff. You're listening to Two Guys Talking Rush.
Two guys talking rush. Two guys talking rush. Two guys talking rush. Two guys talking rush. Two guys.
And now, get ready for the Two Guys Talking Rush podcast with your hosts, John Kane and Dan Buxton.
Hey folks, my name's John Kane, and this is the delightful Dan Buxton, and welcome to episode 40 of Two Guys Talking Rush. This is not Two Guys. I was going to say 40. Yeah. Holy shit.
Yep. That's like a real number. Yeah,
I know.
That actually is like worthy of comment.
10 more episodes. We might have some sort of birthday or something, or milestone.
Or midlife crisis. That's when the show has midlife crisis. At 50 episodes.
I know, we're at our 40, Dan.
Yes, we are. That's right.
This is not Two Guys. Exactly. This is not Two Guys Talking the Carpenters. And no slight to the Carpenters. Highly prolific. And Karen Carpenter was an incredible drummer, by the way.
Richard Carpenter seemed a little difficult at times, is my take. There are other people who said he drove her to death. I'm not going to get into all.
No way to open up Two Guys Talking Rush, but yeah, highly complicated and a huge band. But this again, this is not Two Guys Talking the Carpenters. It's Two Guys Talking the incredibly iconic Rush. So listen in, folks, and discover the best damn Rush podcast in the entire Solar Federation. Two Guys Talking Rush. Dan, how are you, buddy?
My allergies are acting up slightly today.
Same here.
And so every time I have like a little bit of a runny nose, I'm like, is it COVID? And then I remember it's not COVID because I got vaccinated. But it still sucks. And I apologize to our listeners and viewers for if I do anything allergy related. Sorry.
Listen, if you sneeze or sniffle, no one's going to fire you. We don't get paid for this.
That's true. Yeah,
we're doing this for as a gift to people.
That's true. Yeah.
But yeah, allergy season, man. Woof! I'll tell you, the trees.
It's kicking my ass, man.
The trees, man. The trees. And that song was about allergies. They're using
was it
that.
About allergies?
Well, yeah, they're using that in an Allegra commercial right now.
If that were to happen, I would just like throw myself off a building. I'd be like, I'm out. Goodbye.
If they were using the trees in like a Zyrtec commercial. Oh, that would be terrible.
Dude, that would be so hateful for so many reasons.
What a staggered intro this is today. Remember, folks, this show is hosted by fans for fans, and our listeners know we are inclusive. Each week, we try to mix it up with diversified guests and varied content. And, we want fans to join us on this magnificent journey. So our doors are open to our fans. Before I forget, I want to thank our guest on episode 39, author and superfan Phil Simon. That was an awesome episode. Just a reminder, Phil is an award-winning author, public speaker, professor of technology and analytics at ASU, and most importantly, a huge Rush fan. And again, he back in 2014 interviewed Neil Peart for the Huffington Post, and he's known for dropping Rush references into all of his books. So hey, listen, if I drop a Rush reference into a Zyrtec commercial, who gives a shit? The trees, man.
Nobody.
The trees. The pollen,
the trees,
man.
Exactly.
The pollen. See, I'm getting fans out there on my street beeping at me.
Yeah. Keep going. Do it more.
It's a Rush fan beeping at me.
Right.
Well, anyway, here at Two Guys Talking Rush, we are fans of the talented crews who make up the live event and touring industry. So again, please support the Sweet Relief Musician Funds at sweetrelief.org. A small donation will help thousands of music industry people who have been affected by COVID-19. We try to remind folks of that because we are a fan of of the people behind the scenes. We've had them on our show. Many of the Rush production people have been on our show, so we owe that to them. Also, you can hear our podcast on TuneIn, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Pandora, Simplecast, and others. The show is recorded in video as well, so please check out our YouTube channel and click subscribe. A quick shout out to rushradio.org. You can find Rush Radio at the TuneIn app. Rushradio.org daily. You get your daily dose of Rush. A big thank you to Ed Stenger at rushasaband.com. We love Ed Stenger. We love Rush as a Band, as well as the Power Windows website, 2112.net. Check them out as well. Also, Why Not? Their music can be heard in the show's intro, an incredible band. And I just saw a bunch of tour dates for Why Not? And I want to put together something when they come around the area. So, we're going to have them on in the fall, and they're going to be on the road, so it's going to be cool to see them live and check out their work.
I mean, we pre-record, which not everyone knows, so I'm not sure exactly when this episode is going to actually air, but hopefully by the time this airs, if the sort of things I'm seeing now are any indication, by the time this airs, then maybe some live music will be taking place in some places. I'm hoping,
We hope so, yeah. And I know there's so many people that are anticipating that, opening up those floodgates. So, well, if there are any major Rush fans out there, super fans, we want to hear from you. If you have comments, suggestions, ideas, questions about the show, please submit them. I would like to hear from you. Email us at two guys talking rush@gmail.com. That's two, not the word two, not the number two, not the number two. We're always looking for super fans, and as we had Phil Simon on, of course, another Rush super fan who's doing amazing things for our Rush super fan spotlight shows. What is a super fan? What makes you a super fan? Tell us. Email us and tell us why you should be on Two Guys Talking Rush. We want to have you on, and we want you to share your collection, your tattoos. Maybe your mother has a bunch of Rush tattoos that you made her get because you didn't want to get tattoos yourself because you're sort of sadistic and weird.
Genital piercings, if you have any.
Rush genital piercings,
Rush genital piercings, finally. Why we do this show.
that was really strange.
Sorry.
It's okay.
Sorry.
Yeah, see, it's the Zyrtec getting to you. Anyway,
it's the Zyrtec, exactly.
Zyrtec, yeah. It sounds like an alien name, like a bad 60s show, like maybe like Star Trek, like Zyrtec.
It reminds me of on original Star Trek, those guys with like the huge
Zyrtecs. Yeah, the Zyrtecs.
The Zyrtecs. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I love 60s science. I used to love Lost in Space. Remember that?
Mm-hmm. Oh, I love all that stuff.
I think that was John Williams that composed that intro, man. One of those intros. I am most certain. Yeah. Well, I'm rambling on. You should Google that. But yeah, that could young William. That's my best doctor, Dr. Zachary Smith. Ooh.
I knew what you were doing. So.
Oh, God. Well, our website is twoguystalkingrush.com. Our Facebook page, facebook.com/2guystalkingrush. Twitter is twitter.com/2guystalkrush. And again, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Also, we receive no revenue for doing this crazy podcast. If you care about that, maybe you want to take a small amount to help us keep going through our Patreon account or our gift shop, our Two Guys Talking Rush gift shop. We have mugs, t-shirts, buttons, stickers, other cool stuff. And we also have a Patreon account at www.patreon or patreon.com/2guystalkingrush. A nominal amount will go a long, long way to help us fund and keep this show going. And God knows we put a tremendous amount of effort into it. So we appreciate that. Were you going to say something, Dan?
Just would be nice.
Yeah.
That's all. Money would be nice. That's all.
It totally. We hear from fans all the time. And at this point, where our downloads are accelerating at sonic speeds, and they're amassing. They're growing outward, and we get with that trending. We get more and more emails, and we have a couple of fan emails that we got this week that I'd like to read. I know you like this portion of the show, Dan. Well, I love this part of the show. We had Rush superfan Jeff on our show. Remember, he took us into his Rush man cave. My man from out Midwest. Yeah, he was cool. Well, he's been. Oh yeah. He is like, I think he's probably our biggest fan, and he wrote us an incredible email here, and I'm going to read it. So this is from Jeff. Hi, John and Dan. It's been quite a while, but I just wanted to let you guys know what a huge capital letters. Huge fan of the show I've become. My devotion actually developed on our family trip to Captiva Island, Florida in late March, early April. I treated my wife, Nancy, to like 15 episodes of Two Guys Talking Rush. Sorry, Nancy. In truth, hopefully this doesn't end in divorce or something, this email. In truth, she did find you guys amusing during the limited time she actually listened before she put her own earbuds in to escape you and me. Rightly so. I understand, Nancy. But she does have a heart, and she was very happy. And I was happy while driving many miles to and from the Sunshine State as I dodged countless giant potholes from Richmond, Kentucky to Chattanooga, Tennessee on I-75. And Nancy also seemed in awe of how many people there are out there who seem to be like you and me, completely whacked out and obsessed by the greatest three talents in the history of music, and for that matter, any walk of life, Rush. By the way, I told her I find it no coincidence Getty's wife's name is Nancy as well. Interesting.
Oh.
Listen, Jeff, leave your wife alone.
Yeah.
Exactly. Don't force your wife to love Rush, man. Like,
it's not happening.
Come on, man. Come on.
Yeah.
I'm just joking, man. I'm sure she digs it. Well, I tried to get my wife to go see Rush the last couple times. She I think she regrets it now because she saw the documentary, but she wasn't having any of it. Also, he continues on. I've begun to watch your shows on YouTube now, and as I'm typing this, I see you have the 2112 Holiday Special Part 2 with Ari Gold up on YouTube. You may have even just put it up because I couldn't find it the other day when a friend who had listened to the podcast wanted to see if he could tour my Rush museum. So thanks for this, and I'm sure I will get a kick out of it. Yeah, it was up there. It's been up for a while, so I don't know why you couldn't find it. Just a few notes I took from all of your Two Guys Talking Rush shows I listened to. We're being assessed.
Oh boy.
I love Dan's passion for Rush's Something for Nothing lyrics on episode 32 with Donna Halper, and I can entirely relate. Although 99% of your content is awesome, I must admit, when you say anything critical about Rush, it hurts me deeply. An example would be episode 8 with Jacob Moon, when Dan admits he can't do the title track on Roll the Bones. John, you said you still love it, even though you, like Dan, were listening to a lot of metal at the time. The record came out in September 1991. You basically forgave Rush for the title track and raved a lot about the rest of the album, in particular Dreamline and Big Wheel. Guys, here's the deal. The only thing worse than you criticizing Rush is Rush criticizing Rush. Think it if you must, but don't say it. If you have to, please practice by saying Tai Shan is my favorite Rush song 10 times.
Wow. Brutal.
Oh, man. Listen, Jeff, we love Rush unconditionally, man. And well, it's pretty, and let's put it this way. It's pretty boring if you're in a room with a bunch of people who agree with each other. We need to mix it up a little bit. You know, we need
friction. It's got to happen.
You got to have some conflict. Every good story has conflict. Mm-hmm. You know, we need that just to keep our fans on top of it. It seems like it's bothering you enough, Jeff, to keep you listening. So onward. So keep listening. Keep listening. It's absolutely amazing to me that in episode 6, John had an 8-track of Rush, the original album, in his hand, and then grabbed the Grace Under Pressure family photo he had framed, and I had both items within 10 feet of me in my office as I was watching. Whoa. Wow. I just burst out laughing. What are the chances? Yeah, incredible. Well, I figured if anybody was to have those items, Jeff, it would be you. He had a lot of stuff in his Rush man.
I'm trying to imagine what he does not have. And like, I'm not sure there's anything.
Getty's underwear or something?
I don't know. Who's to say?
Alex's underwear. Also, in episode 6, thanks to John for referring to Rush's 20 studio albums. When people say 19, this is true. We often forget the covers album. It's excruciating to me. He says, when people say 19, it is excruciating to me. Leaving Feedback from 2004 off just because the classic songs are covers would be like eliminating Rainbow from Neil Diamond's library. USA Today said almost correctly at that time that 6 of the 8 songs on Feedback are better than the original versions. Yeah, I don't know if I'd agree with that. As we all know, though, it's easily 8 for 8. Well, Feedback has grown on me. what I like about it most is that you can hear Rush's passion for the songs in it. It's something that they didn't have to do. They did it because they love the bands. It's music they were inspired by, and they were having a lot of fun. And for that, I think feedback's good. I don't put it on all the time.
The reason I don't include it among their studio albums is it's an EP. And EPs are always classified separately from full studio albums. It has nothing to do with the fact that it's all covers. They can cover songs forever for all I care, but it's an EP.
Guys, please come see me sometime in Cincinnati. I would love to party with you for an entire weekend or more. We can even turn on some Rush if you'd like. Until then, keep up the good work. I can assure you I'll be listening and watching. Very respectfully, your friend for life, Jeff. P.S. Rush rules. That's true, Jeff. Rush does rule. Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Jeff. Yeah. We appreciate that, Jeff. All right, Rush superfan Scott sends us an email. You were discussing Neil's ability to ride and do a show. I recently read an article where Neil discusses his first 100-mile bike ride, a notable achievement even for the professor. It was from the Richfield, Ohio Coliseum to Mount Eaton, Ohio, July 4th, 1984, an off day. I recently was in Mount Eaton and visited the park Neil mentioned in the article. I also drove Route 94, and if you have ever driven it, this is not your average 100-mile flat bike ride. This is some of the most hilly, curved roads. This feat was astonishing. My first Rush concert was July 6th, 2 days later. I can attest, he wasn't fazed by the adventure. If you're ever in Northeast Ohio and want to retrace his ride, contact me. I'll buy you lunch in Peninsula, where bands usually stayed, and we can drive it in a car. Keep up the excellent work. Thank you, Rush superfan Scott.
Very nice.
My heart is warming.
Yeah.
The warmth is embracing my glowing, appreciative heart.
It means a lot, you know. I mean,
it's
honestly,
warming my cockles. It's warming my cockles.
You have your cockles are warm as fuck, but really, this kind of thing makes it, to me, means a lot. It really makes it all worth it, as far as I'm concerned. That people are enjoying it as much as they are, and feel like they want to give us a hard time for our tiny little infractions. Means this is exactly how it should be.
I would even say that you were tearing up, but it's because the Zyrtec's not working.
Exactly. Yes.
False tears, man. We should just get the spray bottle, this proverbial spray bottle, and edit it so it looks like
I can just get an onion and just rub it against my face. And,
onion. Rush superfan Steve, we have one more. We got 3 emails this week, man. Holy shit.
Yeah.
Hey guys, loving the show. A couple of ideas I want to run by you. First, I don't know if it's possible, but man, it would be great to hear you guys talk to Terry Brown. I agree. Terry knows about the show, Steve. Mm-hmm. What a great guest that would be. Also, what do you guys think about doing an episode on live Rush bootlegs? I like that idea. I know there are lots of Rush. It's a good one. I know there are lots of Rush fans.
That's a good idea, actually. Yeah.
He says, I know there are lots of Rush fans like myself who have quite a few live boots in our collection. Just a thought. And finally, a question for both of you. John, out of all the Rush shows you've attended, which one would you say was the best one you saw? Same question for you, Dan. For me, out of the 16 times I've seen them, my absolute favorite was the Signal show. I saw it at Riverfront Coliseum, March 30th, 1983, here in my hometown. They were always great live, of course, but that one in particular was my favorite show of all time. Thanks again for doing the show, Steve in Cincinnati. For me, I know you hadn't seen them much, Dan. I'm sure the shows you've seen were your favorite shows. The one that just stands out for me is when I got to meet them and I was on the guest list, and there's just there's such a vibe and electricity going on. It was so much fun, having be so close up front and just seeing everybody. And Jillian was there from RushCon. Donna was at the soundboard. Howard, hanging out with Howard. Many people who were on the guest list on the guests that have been guests on this show were there, and just a lot of fun. It's amazing how you could go to a show of 15,000 people, 20,000 people, and have it feel like a small club show in that way when all the fans are that together.
Well, it's you and God knows how many thousands of people all thinking the exact same thing at the exact same time and all responding to the same thing at the same time. you know, it's like when you enter the facility, like, you know, you're these disparate people who have nothing to do with each other. As soon as the music starts, it's one mind,
Yeah.
you know, and you know, there are a lot of people who I would see at shows who I would think, like, if I ran into them socially, I don't know if we would necessarily get along that great or whatever, but, you know, second the music starts, it's a whole different story.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, and you definitely feel like one with these people for sure.
Definitely. Well, we're on to our next segment of the show. This week in Rush tour history. In 1977, Rush play the Bay Theater in Green Bay, Wisconsin on the All the World's a Stage tour. In 78, they play the Riverfront Coliseum in Cincinnati, Ohio on the Farewell to Kings tour. In 81, they play the War Memorial in Rochester, New York on their Moving Pictures tour. In 83, they play the Forest National in Bruxelles, Belgium on the Signals tour. In 84, they play the Lawler Events Center in Reno, Nevada on the Grace Under Pressure tour. In 86, they play the Salt Palace Center in Salt Lake City, Utah on the Power Windows tour. 2011, they play the O2 in Dublin, Ireland on the Time Machine tour, their first and only concert in Ireland. Wow. Huh. Yeah, if there's
That's
anybody,
surprising.
I know. Oh, I feel bad for Ireland, man. It's probably
I
some
feel
Rush
very
fans.
bad for Ireland.
Hey,
Yeah,
listen,
exactly.
Ireland, if you're listening, we want to hear from you. I want to hear from Rush fans from Ireland. This is a call out, a shout out to you guys. Send me an email, send Dan an email, get you on the show and talk about how much Ireland loves Rush.
I
That'd
love
be cool.
Ireland. We've been to Ireland. They're
Oh, I
like
wanna
the
go.
nicest people I've ever met in my life. They
man.
treat you like family the second you get off the plane. Nicest
Yeah.
people I've ever met. And
Yeah.
Rush should have gone there more often, in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah, my wife's been there. I haven't been there. I've traced my lineage to Ireland. It used to be O'Kane. My last name's Kane. We dropped the O because of the discriminatory activities back in the day. But anyway, yeah, it's on my list, my bucket list to go to Ireland, definitely. And I will probably wear a Rush shirt.
Yeah.
In 2015, Rush played the Xcel Energy Center in St. Paul, Minnesota on the R40 Live tour. Also, Clockwork Angels, the graphic novel, was released in 2015, collecting the complete 6-issue story arc of the Clockwork Angels comic written by Kevin J. Anderson with Neil Peart, illustrated by Nick Robles. Very cool.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
This week in Rush news, a new book titled Rush, A Visual Time Capsule from photographer Bill O'Leary has been released and is now available to purchase via Amazon and other retailers. The 53-page paperback book contains O'Leary's photos of Rush in concert, many previously unseen, from their peak artistic period of 1979 through 81. That's cool. Covering the Hemisphere's Permanent Waves and Moving Pictures tours. That'll be cool. The book also features a foreword by renowned rock journalist, author Greg Prato. And look out for that. Look out for that new book. That sounds pretty cool.
Oh, and Bill O'Leary, if you're out there listening right now, there are numerous Bill O'Learys out there who are all photographers. So if you could do me a solid and get in touch with us so we know which one is you, we would like to invite you on the show.
Yeah, that would be cool.
I had an embarrassing incident with Bill O'Leary, who is a photographer for the Washington Post. So I need to narrow the sample pool a little bit. He was like, no, I'm not that Bill O'Leary. What are you talking about? No.
Well, we'll have to find... we'll have to track Bill O'Leary down.
We will find him.
Also, it was
We will sniff him out.
It was Mother's Day this week.
Yes.
This last week. And I went to go see my mom. It's funny. I think if I asked my mother who my favorite band was, she would know it was Rush because I just listened.
Oh, really?
Just because I just listened to them so much, and our rooms were sort of adjoining that way, like we lived in an apartment. So I'm sure she heard a lot of it, would recognize it. But yeah. What about you?
You should have her on the show.
No, definitely not, man. That would be confusing and chaotic.
No,
Thanks.
That's the point.
You want to lose?
No,
yeah, I know that would be hilarious.
What would be probably slightly worse would be my mother being on the show, because
I want that.
Like, she doesn't really like music very much at all. So there'd be very little to come on and talk about unless she wanted to talk about immigration law. in the 20th century. So if we want to talk about that,
is she a scholar? Is she a scholar? Is your mom a scholar?
She was a federal immigration judge for 35 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's impressive.
Not a Rush fan, though, sadly.
So she doesn't like any music at all? Just music in general? Or
she
Perry
doesn't
Como?
She doesn't like background music. Like if you put something on in the background, she's just, she just hates it. So there's a lot of silence, a lot of nice, uncomfortable, awkward silence.
Oh, I love it.
But it's okay.
Well, listen.
That's why I listen to music constantly. So.
That's why you're sort of getting back at your mom in some way because you're such a music
it's just
guy.
I'm making up for lost time. That's all. Not everyone has to like it. I get it.
I understand. Well, Geddy Lee loves his mom, and
yes, he does.
He wished his mom, Mary Weinrib, a happy Mother's Day on Instagram. Geddy Lee took to Instagram to wish his mom, Mary, a happy Mother's Day. He says, "Happy Mother's Day to my beautiful mom, Mary, pushing 96 and still rocking out. And she just got vaccinated too. May she be around for many more." Right on, Mary. Thank you for producing
96.
Thank you for producing Geddy Lee.
Not just for that. I mean, she and her husband are both Holocaust survivors, and so
absolutely,
they had to get through all of that to bring us Rush.
Imagine that.
So that's a big deal.
Imagine that. I mean, what a gift. Yeah,
we are very lucky.
We are so grateful
to be sitting here right now. Yeah.
Happy Mother's Day.
Yeah, seriously.
The pair will be featured, and we've been mentioning this on the show. The pair will be featured in an upcoming episode from Cradle to Stage, the new Paramount Plus docuseries from Dave and Virginia Grohl, based on Virginia's 2017 book of the same name. Geddy and his mom will be featured in the final episode of the show's first season on June 10th. You can see that. I watched it on YouTube, so you can check it out on YouTube. Mm-hmm. The From Cradle to Stage Stories from Mothers Who Rocked and Raised Rock Stars contains a chapter on Geddy Lee's mom, Mary Weinrib, where Mary talks about what influenced Geddy to choose a musical career and the prevalence of music in their family home. If you haven't read From Cradle to Stage yet, you can order it on Amazon, I believe. I can't wait to check that out. That's going to be a good one.
That's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Is Chris Holmes going to be on it?
He should. His mom was in that.
I would like to see that.
Well, we Dan and I are talking about Chris Holmes from the band Wasp and former guitarist of the band Wasp, and he has a new documentary out. It's very interesting. I feel bad for Chris Holmes, man. I think he got taken advantage of, and he was the size. I actually like Wasp. I like classic metal, mm-hmm. and we talk about classic metal on the show a lot. And I think if anybody likes classic metal, there's probably some Wasp music in there that you might dig. But I think Chris was he gave a distinct sound to the Wasp presentation.
Yeah, but unfortunately, the thing he's going to be most remembered for is like 3 minutes of movie footage from 30 years ago. Sadly,
it's too bad. Yeah.
But maybe they work it out in this documentary that you're talking about. So
yeah.
But
check it. Did you see the documentary yet?
Not yet. No.
Okay.
I'm still working my way through the Son of Sam one.
Oh, brutal. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's not
let's
not bring this podcast in another direction. But anyway, back in early 2020, Cheap Trick guitarist Rick Nielsen. You're a Cheap Trick fan, are you? Yes or no?
Yes.
Okay, me too.
Yes.
Good. I love Cheap Trick. Back in early 2020, Cheap Trick guitarist Rick Nielsen purchased Geddy Lee's 1959 Les Paul Standard after Geddy had put it up for auction. Nielsen was recently interviewed for Guitar Player magazine to talk about his extensive guitar collection and also tell the story behind the purchase of the Les Paul. He says, back in January 2020, I actually won Geddy Lee's former 1959 Les Paul Standard at a Meckham auction in Florida. I don't know. I'd known about the guitar for a long time, and I was semi-chasing it because the 1959 Les Paul that my Rick Nielsen Collector's Choice Gibson Custom Historic model was based on was also a guitar I got in Canada around 1980. I sort of forgot all about this particular guitar until it resurfaced with Geddy. The auction was January 10th, and right as the gavel went up, The same day, the same hour, the same minute, basically, was when Neil Peart passed. I didn't want to seem like a ghoul, so I didn't tell anyone immediately that I had the guitar. Eventually, word got out, and the guitar dealer, Drew Berlin, offered me twice what I paid for it. And when Steven Tyler saw that I had the guitar, he offered me even more money for it. And the interviewer says, "Did you take Steven's offer?" And he said, "Nope."
Right.
It's in good hands. Rick Nielsen, I hear, has an incredible guitar collection, man. I love Cheap Trick. I was listening to a few of their early albums. Just good stuff, man. Good rock. There was, I think I posted it because you and I are friends on Facebook. It was Don Kirshner's rock concert. There is a performance that, man, it is just screaming rock and roll, man. It's so good,
I would like it, like in general, if they would just open the Don Kirshner vaults generally and just let all that stuff out. Because there's, I remember watching it.
I know.
Even when I was little and just being like, oh my God, this is amazing.
I know. Incredible stuff, man.
Oh,
definitely.
Hell yeah. And some Rush appearances, if I'm not mistaken.
That's right. There was a Rush t-shirt sighting in the recent Billy Mintz documentary Portrayal, which is currently screening at the Hot Docs Film Festival. When the subject of the film arrives in Israel to meet his family, some kids playing in a little acoustic music jam are shown, and one of them was wearing a Rush Explosion logo t-shirt. I like little tidbits like that. That's a documentary.
That's the first album?
Yes, the Explosion.
The Rush Explosion is...
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Right.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah. The June 2021 issue of Guitarist Magazine includes a one-page article on Alex Lifeson's Open Chords, where Richard Barrett explores Lifeson's pioneering approach to achieve wider, fuller sounds, which is interesting. Guitar.com's Michael Leonard wrote a posthumous review of Rush's landmark Moving Pictures album this past week, and you can check that out online. The album was also profiled from bestclassicbands.com, which takes a look at the top-selling albums of 1981.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and still, we're waiting for some kind of 40th anniversary something for that album.
We're planning something big for the 40th of Moving Pictures. So
yeah, for sure.
Don't you worry, folks. UltimateGuitar.com posted their list of the 7 rock bands who called it quits at the right time this past week, and Rush was included. Rush is another example of a band knowing their limits and deciding to leave while they still can deliver an amazing performance every night with no compromises. After celebrating their 40th anniversary with a large-scale tour, R40, the band left a possibly of one-off shows and small tours opened, but the last concert of the tour in Inglewood, California at the Forum, where incidentally Slayer would play their final concert 4 years later, turned out to be Rush's final performance together as a band. Rush always wanted to give the fans only the best, and continuing on while battling multiple health issues would have meant the quality of the shows would go down. There's probably no other band that gave such flawless performances up to the very end of their 40-year-plus career. Damn right.
Yeah, not a chance there was anyone else.
Flawless.
Yeah.
I mean, even right down to Neil, man. I mean, just boom, focused.
Yeah.
Bingo, MusicRadar.com ran a poll to determine the greatest pre-1980 bassist this past week, and Geddy Lee ended up taking the top spot. The man that no one calls Gary Weinrib anymore makes the top of your list, and quite rightly so. As singer, bassist, and keyboard player, and with sadly no longer active trio Rush, Geddy embedded himself into our world across 4 decades of recorded and live music. His phenomenal grooves and fills, often delivered in sync with the much missed drummer Neil Peart, are second to none. Let us hope we witness his return to the lighted stage sooner rather than later. Yeah, it'd be a shame if Geddy or Alex didn't play any longer. I hope they. I don't know.
They're such pure musicians.
Yeah.
I can't picture them like never playing again. Definitely taking some time and definitely.
I like the idea of the Lee Lifeson project. I don't have a problem with that. You just can't call it Rush. It's not Rush.
Exactly.
And Rush fan Brian Bayer contributed a piece to the first-person column in Globe and Mail this past week titled, "Rush's music taught me that I could grow and that I could change." So you should check out that article. Dave Babbitt wrote a piece for the Wallaceburg Courier Press last week on how great drummers have great physical stamina, and Neil Peart is mentioned. Little quote from that: "My friends who love rock music would never forgive me if I failed to mention the genius of the late Neil Peart, drummer of Rush, a master technician with incredible skills. Neil was the one who actually came up with the idea and produced the 2-album tribute to Buddy Rich titled Burning for Buddy. Neil invited a bevy of the greatest drummers from a variety of bands to choose a Buddy Rich chart and record it. Great drummers respect great drummers regardless of the genre they play in." Cool. Yeah. So people, it's cool. People are starting to write about Rush, and really, it's the conversation is growing.
They're getting some belated respect, which I'm happy to see finally happening. I'm sorry they had to break up for that to happen, but I'm glad it's happening, even if it's late.
It's almost like, when someone discovers a hole in the ground, and the hole in the ground is so big, you don't see it for what it's worth. You step away from it and you're like, holy shit, a meteor hit this thing.
Yes, exactly.
And the meteor that's 25 miles long and 25 miles wide is Rush.
Yeah. A lot of people never recognized it for what it was at the time, but
they just walked across it as if it was just, hiking the Grand Canyon or something.
Right. What's with this hole in the ground? Jesus.
What is this? What a pain in the ass. I got to get through this. I got to get over this.
They should fill this.
Fill the bridge. No, the meteor is Rush, folks. Oh, yeah. That's the best I could come up with. I'm sorry.
That's a good one.
Thank you. Music writer Martin Popoff, our friend Martin Popoff, the Stephen King of rock and roll.
Yes.
I hope he doesn't get pissed that I say that too. That's it. He's not a horror writer. He just writes. He writes.
He is very prolific, and when he's not writing constantly, he's podcasting constantly. And I think you and I are both just in awe of his productivity, because I'm not that productive. I know that.
Absolutely.
I like a good nap whenever I can get one. I like sitting on my ass. I like doing nothing. Not this guy. So
no, he just does it. I'm so impressed by Martin Popoff. Our friend, music writer Martin Popoff's Driven, Rush in the 90s, and In the End, the third and final book of his 3-part Rush Across the Decades series, officially released this last week, and you can now order it on Amazon and other online retailers. The author is also accepting orders for signed editions of the book. You can go to his website, martinpopoff.com. The first book in the series was Anthem, Rush in the 70s, which is incredible, released last May, and Martin was on for that show. His second book, he was on the show at that time, and his second book was Limelight, Rush in the 80s. Again, Martin came on. This is, I think, his third time on the show. We're going to get to introducing him in a moment. And that was, Limelight was released in October. The Imitation Leather-bound book comes in at 424 pages. This is no small feat.
No.
From the book's description, in conclusion to this trilogy of authoritative books on Canada's most beloved and successful rock band, Martin Popoff takes us through 3 decades of life at the top for Rush's Geddy Lee, Alex Lifeson, and Neil Peart. Though this era begins with the brisk-selling Roll the Bones and sees throngs of fans sell out international tours, there is also unimaginable tragedy with Peart losing his daughter and his wife within the space of 10 months, and 2 decades later, succumbing to cancer himself. In between, however, there is a gorgeous and heartbreaking album of reflection and bereavement, as well as a triumphant trip to Brazil, a Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction, and, some say surprisingly, the band's first blown concept album to close an immense career marked by integrity and idealism. And well, the book is incredible. Martin Popoff is incredible. Rush is not his only focus. He is a scholar on many different subjects as it relates to rock and roll, especially heavy metal. And I implore any of you to familiarize yourself with Martin's impressive catalog of work. This week, Martin Popoff is our guest, and he's going to be talking about his latest book, Driven. And we really want to thank Martin for joining the show again, and welcome Martin Popoff to Two Guys Talking Rush.
Hello.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
How are you, man?
Hear me all right? Very cool.
Can hear you fine, man.
All right.
Thanks for coming on again.
No worries. No worries.
I know we were crossing information. We were hounding you in the beginning. We didn't really. I guess we didn't have an idea of a good idea when your book's coming out and Dan contacted you. I contacted. So we apologize for that
All right.
conundrum, man. You know, I feel like I see you so much because you're sort of everywhere. You know, with the Contrarian and the Sea of Tranquility and how many different podcasts are you doing right now?
Well, I'm doing the Contrarians, which is our video show, our YouTube show, and then I've got the podcast History in 5 Songs with Martin Popoff, and that's at 97 episodes at this point.
Wow.
And I go on Pete's show at least once a week, if not a couple times a week. Sometimes we did a Little Feat one this morning.
Oh, nice.
Cool. Yeah. How do you come up with ideas? I mean, you guys really. It's impressive. And like,
Pete has a ton of ideas. And I just usually, when I'm doing History in 5 Songs, my actual podcast, I usually just come up with the idea Sunday mornings, it seems lately, and just go for it. You know, once I have a few examples, I just do it. So
that's great, man. Well, thanks for coming on again. I mean, this is your third time on Two Guys Talking Rush, and we really appreciate your willingness to come on and talk about your work. And aside from getting into your latest book, do you have any other non-Rush related books that you're working on that you'd like to share now, just out of curiosity?
There's a few that I really can't share. There's 3, but the one that's winging its way over to me right now is the next one in the series of the visual biographies from Weimar from the UK. So we've got a Uriah Heep one that's finished. Nice. A Yes one that I've seen. I've basically approved the inside layout. Other than that, we've got the Sweet book still, the Angel book, Flaming Telepaths, Imaginos expanded and specified, and I'm doing prints out of that, which is kind of working out, which is good. Other than that, the Rush Driven book is the big one, which just came out, I guess, officially.
Exactly, and you know, we want to talk to you about that. So your last was Limelight, Rush in the 80s. Yeah, this is in a trilogy of books. This is Rush in the 90s, I'm just curious. Are you a fan of Rush in the 90s?
Let's see. So I would say definitely come counterparts, Snakes and Arrows, definitely Vapor Trails, definitely the end of the situation, Clockwork Angels. So not so much Roll the Bones, not so much Test for Echo, I'd say.
Yeah.
Test for Echo gets very little love.
Yeah,
and I kind of get. I think there's like a couple of good songs on it, but Virtuality I think is absolutely rock bottom worst lyrics Neil ever wrote, and it's like, oh Jesus, you know, gotta skip that immediately.
So I'm that way with Dog Years. It seems like a nursery rhyme to me or something.
Yeah. One thing I wanted to bring up with you guys that I wanted to take issue on, and it was an interesting discussion when you had talking with Ralph.
Yeah.
You guys were talking about sweet spot albums, right? Like, where's that sweet spot? And then you were talking about Rush, and then I'm thinking you guys are kind of struggling here because Rush is a band that doesn't really have a sweet spot album. Now, let me kind of explain, because I've thought about this for a long time in terms of, like, I'm going to probably do an episode of History in 5 Songs where I talk about that concept, but it's more like I always used to call them cusp albums, where the idea is you've got sort of this consistency of something happening, and it's running into what's going to be the consistency of something else happening. And right when those two lines cross, that's kind of an exciting period of discovery for the band, or exciting balance that they hit. And I always thought the Judas Priest had that with Hellbent for Leather.
Yes.
Being a lot of the fast, sweet science from the past with a lot of the sturdy songwriting and getting kind of a little more simpler and straightened out and down into the trenches of British Steel. I always thought Sepultura had that with Chaos AD, being like the nice sweet spot between the unlistenable early stuff and Roots, which is a bridge too far kind of thing, right? I always thought Husker Du had that with New Day Rising. Everybody loves New Day Rising because it's a cross between the unlistenable stuff from the early days and then getting into Flip Your Wig and Candy Apple Gray and Warehouse, which are 3 pretty much identical albums, right? So when you guys talked about that with Rush, I thought, you know, it's not bad when a band doesn't have a sweet spot album, right? Because you talked about Rush at length, very smartly, and Black Sabbath as well. But it's like not everybody has a sweet spot album, right?
Right.
And I think Rush, well, first of all, Black Sabbath, I don't think has that because, you know, I mean, both Rush and Black Sabbath are, here's a great thing in this direction. Now we're going to try a great thing in this direction. And we have this. And Rush lines up in a couple of pairs. I just did an episode of History in 5 Songs where I talked about part 2 albums. And Rush I picked as a perfect pair. And Rush has like 3 or 4 pairs, right? But it doesn't have that thing where here's 2 or 3 like this. And then here's one where we change them and then we do 2 or 3 like this. And I think Black Sabbath's exactly the same way. So that's why I thought, you know what? Not everybody has that sweet spot album, that cusp album, yet you could still be a great band without it. So there you go. There's my rant.
I think Dan said, I mean, I know what you mean. And Dan, you might have referenced the sweet spot. Let's define what sweet spot means first. What is a sweet spot as it relates to a band? Is it the threshold of excellence? Or is it a threshold of excellence and then a change in direction for the better or for the worse? And if it's for the worse, the hanger on is that threshold. If it goes in a different direction, whatever comes after, that's that little nugget. Is it the golden shining nugget of, you know, the band on the rise, and then they've got that one album that just captures it all, you know? Because you might have referenced Moving Pictures as sweet spot, Dan. I don't remember. I don't have to reference that episode, but
yeah, I mean, for me, sweet spot relates more to just like me individually as a listener. Like, what's the period that I just tend to come back to all the time?
Okay.
Yeah.
You know, and for me, there's definitely a few albums, you know, late, you know, 70s, early 80s that I just, you know, and it's not to discount anything else that they did. It's just when I'm not going to put on like my way awesome Rush playlist that I personally curated on Apple Music or whatever, just Moving Pictures or Signals or what, you know, just without even thinking. That's what it is. Like, the cusp is a little different. And for me, like, I sort of come at that a little bit more from like the writer analytical perspective, like trying to look at like, you know, their entire career across everything that they did. For me, though, the sweet spot that only refers to like, is there a group of albums where I just consistently liked it enough to listen to it every time? Voivod, I would say, certainly had like a sweet spot where, you know, they have this great long career, lots of stuff that's worth hearing, yet I just keep coming back to these same 5 albums all the time. So it's really just a personal thing for me, rather than trying to like say anything they did beyond this one point was worthless or not as good. I just don't listen to it as much. But you know,
like,
like,
Neil Peart might say that Moving Pictures was Rush's sweet spot.
He said it was the album where we became us. So I mean, I have to imagine that, you know, they just have some kind of fondness for that particular album. Like, you know, that was really a moment. Alex Lifeson said very recently in an interview, like that's his favorite album that they ever did. But I don't know if that means necessarily that it's the one that they just find the most enjoyable or the one that they felt was the most artistically significant for them. It can mean a lot of different things. But I mean, I try to keep my perspective more as like just a listener as opposed to as a writer, because when you're thinking about it from like the writer standpoint, it can get a little muddy for me. And I try to focus more just on like, what do I keep coming back to? Like Sticky Fingers is not the only good Rolling Stones album, but I just keep throwing it on over and over again. And I know they have other good stuff, but I would say for me, that's what it means for it to be a sweet spot.
I mean, there are Rush albums that are transitional and that are clearly transitional. I mean, to me, you know, an album, one might say, oh, well, Moving Pictures is a transition album, but I actually think Signals is a transitional album, you know. And I was just listening to Grace Under Pressure the other day, of course, probably my favorite Rush album. I mean, that's a dark album, but it captures what's to come in a lot of ways too, in sort of a simplistic way. What's to come, they pull away from the heavy guitar sounds and start to get into this other direction. So that could be considered somewhat of a transitional album, but even more punctuated than Signals in a different way. But I don't know. I look at Sweet Spot as the transitional, the pivot, what's to change. And if the pivot's good, we could probably emphasize sweet, but sometimes it's not always so sweet.
Also, sometimes the cusp happens in the sweet spot. So this can go a lot of different ways. So
sure,
I think it's the pivotal and the transitional and cusp, and all of that to me equals the sweet spot thing. So my whole definition is a bunch of things in a row running into another bunch of things in a row, and where they cross, maybe the best of one era crossed with the best of another era. And that's why Rush, I think, just has, they change way more often than every 5 albums, put it that way. And that's why I think you can't, it's too bumpy a ride to say there's a cusp album.
They have multiple cusps, I would say. Like what I think they had 19 studio albums, and like maybe 5 of them at different points. I could say this was a cusp. This was, Fly By Night, definitely cusp. Hemispheres, cusp. Does that mean though that it's the sweet spot? It depends who you talk to. I don't know, but again, for me, it's more about what, the sweet spot is just what do I listen to? What do I like? What makes me just immediately go like, yeah, that kind of thing.
More than not, I think our listeners would say that Permanent Waves for them was the sweet spot of Rush. I mean, we hear that over and over and over. But who knows what would have happened after post Clockwork Angels? What if they continued to go on? Would it have got better? I like Snakes and Arrows, but I like Clockwork Angels a lot more. There are good songs with Snakes and Arrows, but the continuity of it doesn't flow like Clockwork. Like for me, maybe that's because it was treated as a conceptual album. But I think Snakes and Arrows is a little fragmented for me, and I like the instrumentals. There are a few songs that are quite powerful, but anyway, that's I'm glad you brought that up and laid that all on the table for us, Martin. It's interesting, and it makes you think about this is aside from Rush, but we were just talking about Type O Negative, because Dan and I are both massive Type O Negative fans. And I asked him, what's your favorite Type O album and why? And what was this, and using them as an example, what was the sweet spot for Type O Negative? And I'd
say October Rust.
You would? Okay. For you, it would be, yeah. See, I think Life Is Killing Me gets overshadowed. I think it's a wonderful album. It has a lot of those previous elements of Type O, what made them so great.
Actually, I'm wrong. I think it's probably Bloody Kisses, because Bloody Kisses is the cross between the unlistenable early stuff and the commercial era, right?
Yeah, maybe you're right. Yeah, it was just a different band at that point, right? It just sounded different. Interesting stuff. Hopefully some of our listeners are Type O Negative fans as well. So in previous episodes, we asked you how you put together this trilogy. Remind us again how you put together this last portion of this trilogy of books based on Rush. You compiled it all as one and then chopped it up, or were you working on this last?
Pretty much, yeah. So I guess the idea was we had the trunk, which was Contents Under Pressure, the authorized Rush biography from 2003. We had the idea that had no outside press in it, so I'm going to bring in some outside press. We had the idea that I'm going to analyze the songs quite a bit more based on the inspiration I had from doing the Led Zeppelin and the Clash book, which was all that. And then the biggest chunk was we had, I'm going to use, strike a deal with Scott and Sam and use all that stuff we didn't use in the movie. So yes, it started as one book. You know what? It really didn't start as one book. It started with ECW as one book, but I kind of knew in the back of my mind, this ain't going to stay as one book. And I started doing what I normally do and create these big Word files where I'm popping all the large chunks of interview stuff all along the way into where they go. Like I kind of like write a chapter, or I name a chapter an album, and then I put in all the songs, and then I put in things like writing the songs, pre-production, album cover, all the songs, mixing, tour. And I do that in 36-point caps. And then I start throwing in all the quotes from everywhere, from all my own chats with the guys and Scott and Sam and outside press. and fill that all up. And then I basically looked at it and said, okay, we got over 300,000 words here. I think it comes in at 360,000 words. So it's 3 books, it's 3 fairly long books. And actually the last one, Driven, that just came out is the longest of all of them. I think it's about 400 pages. Huh. So yeah, all of those elements, I just figured it's the kitchen sink time. Let's put everything in that, were disparate little parts of the other books and put it all in one place, and hence the trilogy.
So from there, based on your style of writing and organization, you amass this mountain of information and then break it up, and then you whittle it down and add a narrative in there, or how do you bring in your voice? At what point do you do that?
When I start taking that raw file and start moving things over and writing and segueing between all the bits and pieces, and then doing kind of a rough analysis eventually of okay, how would I break this into 3 books? And fortunately it fell. I'm looking at the 3 in a stack here. I mean, fortunately it fell into a proper amount when you go 70s, 80s, and then 90s to the end, and it worked out as exactly what you would kind of expect, and with a little fudging here and there to expand on certain things and cut back on certain things, but yeah, it's just it just worked out that it would be that way.
In your view, thank you, and congratulations, by the way. In your view, what was the distinct change, by some sort of comparative analysis from Rush in the 1980s to the 90s? What happened? And of course, the 2000s occur. What happens in the 80s and into the 90s with Rush that's different?
There's no change at all to start with, because Roll the Bones is basically Presto Part 2. It's
why do you think that?
Same kind of record. I don't know. It's got the same kind of production and same amount of keyboards and it's a Getty singing album and all that, even though it's separated by roughly 2 years, I guess. Same producer, right?
Rupert Hine, right?
Yeah, so there's not much of a difference, I don't think. Same kind of Alex being enamored with acoustic guitar mixed, dovetailing with electric, and then the electric is very behaved, and Neil is very behaved. Very kind of poppy drum sound across all the drums. So yeah, not a lot of difference, which is pretty interesting when you think about. Rush is so often just going completely against the grain of what is in, and they're totally doing it here as well. I mean, who knows what is in at this point? I mean, actually, fact of the matter is, hair metal is in, and then grunge is in, and it's absolutely a million miles away from either of those solitudes, right? What they're doing, which is quite bizarre. They're not thrash either. Thrash is pretty big at this time. So we got thrash, we got grunge. We got hair metal still being pretty big. Guns N' Roses in 91. Nirvana's big second album in 91. A lot of big things happening out there in the world, all with Geffen.
The death of White Lion.
Yes.
The death of White Lion.
In Boston. Well, I just heard that story that their final performance was at the Channel in Boston. That was a venue I frequented. And
yeah.
It's so symbolic. It's so symbolic that grunge comes in White Lion.
And grunge has been around for a good 2.5 years. So it's in its mature phase and really, really picking up. Pearl Jam is massive at this time. Soundgarden is pretty darn big at this time. And still a lot of the hair metal bands are doing their Go to Vancouver and Try Harder albums, where they, they're turning in some of their best stuff. I always think 1992 is one of the lost years of hair metal, which is actually where a lot of the good albums come out of. So all around this time, there's things happening, and it ain't Rush. Rush is the one thing. They're just off in their own world, where they might have aligned with certain things along in life, perhaps more so in the 70s, because prog was big and heavy metal was big at the same time, and they were doing both combined and all that kind of stuff. But at this point, like what are they doing? It's nothing that's particularly popular, yet they persevere. They get a gold record with Presto, they get a platinum record with Roll the Bones. They're still doing pretty darn well.
And that's sort of an anomaly, right? I mean, it's a world dominated by this force of a specific movement of music. Yet here's this band that has transcended decades of changing sounds and changing styles, and Roll the Bones is sort of an odd album in the mix of all this within this landscape of music. And the question is like, how does it happen? Like, how do they fill arenas and get a gold album? And it's so weird. Are people just so loyal to Rush and to the guys that they just, no matter what they put out at this point, is okay?
May I
sure.
answer that?
Sure.
Yes. That's the answer. I think if some other band had put out Roll the Bones that same year, exactly identical music, no one would have cared, and it would have just disappeared overnight. I don't think that's a controversial view. Rush put out a lot of stuff that I think if any other band had done it, it probably would have gotten a pretty indifferent response, but they had a very loyal fan base at that time that was willing to indulge them. I also thought it was funny in the 90s when Counterparts came out, and a lot of people were like, oh, it's their grunge album. No, there is no grunge band that sounds like that. But I think people were just so happy that the heavy guitars were back, that they were talking all kinds of euphoric nonsense like it's their grunge album. So
guys are talking, Rush, two guys, two guys are talking, Rush, two guys are talking, Rush, two guys are talking, Rush, two guys.
Stay tuned for part 2 of the Two Guys Talking Rush podcast next week.